What's up, everyone? My name is James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. I'll get to every single one of them today on the program. We're going to talk a little Columbus Blue Jackets off season right now. We got our one of our favorites here on the show, and he's actually on here right now. I'll give him a second or two to get ready and get all set up. But we're going to be joined by Troy Noak momentarily. He's been on the show a bunch of times. Nobody better to talk Columbus Blue Jackets and everything around the league. And he's getting his camera all set up. He's all good there because I can see the little preview window. That's the great thing. Why don't we bring him on now? Our man, Sleeper Man City, Troy Noak. Troy, how's it going, man?
Fantastic, James. How's it going? Can't wait for the NHL season rolling up upon us, and thank you for having me on yet again.
Yeah, I'm going through withdrawals. I've said this before. This is the worst time of the year for sports for me. It's all baseball. Don't care about baseball. Like, just, it's all like everyone here is talking about the Blue Jays because that's the only team in Canada. I'm watching Ivan Holinka under 18 hockey yesterday. That was what I was doing as far as sports go. I will watch any hockey any day of the week over any other sport. Maybe not MMA, but yeah, hockey is, there's still some hockey going on right now. So enjoying that. But before we get into everything, man, how's your summer been? I think the last time we spoke was during free agency. So how's everything been going for you?
Everything's been fantastic. The Premier League starts on Friday. I've been making a ton of content with that recently. Just got back from England. And although the Blue Jackets didn't get many new players, I think the players that they brought back statistically were fantastic, because there was a stat that I saw that the Blue Jackets were averaging slightly under 3 goals against per game when Fabro, Werenski, Provorov, and Matejchuk were all on the ice at the same time. So with that being said, those players weren't always on the ice at the same time. So if we could get a healthy spell with this team, I think that we could get into the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, and to answer our question on the title there, I'm with you. They were so close last year. It seemed like things were really clicking towards the end. I know there was a few, slumps here and there, but I think this year, you got the goaltending figured out. I don't know if, again, it's not really on Merzlikins. It's more on Greaves, I think, is the guy that they're sort of, turning to. Like, I think Columbus this year, because, some teams are going to fall off. We can actually talk about that maybe a little bit later. I've been doing this with all the guests. Like, what are some teams you think will, make the playoffs? What won't? We'll obviously do a full preview closer to the season about our projections for next year. I need to go find our show from last year, by the way, and see how far off we were, how good we were. But let's go to the Blue Jackets. I got the article up here from The Athletic talking about some of the moves. Let's go through some of them. So you get Charlie Coyle, Miles Woods, and Lundstrom. You lose James Van Riemsdyk, Danforth, Harris, and Tarasov. What did you think of the moves here? Obviously, with getting Miles Woods, you're getting that contract as well. But Charlie Coyle, a good pickup. And then they obviously re-signed Provorov, which we'll get to in a second. But just overall thoughts on the offseason.
Overall thoughts, I think this is exactly what we needed. Although our third and fourth lines were pretty solid last year, they really did lack size and speed. Hence, that's why we acquired Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood, who's fast as anything. And Isaac Lundstrom, for what it's worth, is a pretty underrated center. And Don Waddell has said many times on account that he doesn't care if you're a center that plays on the wing. He just needs people to be able to take faceoffs, because not everyone's healthy all the time. And we had a real lack of right-handed center options last year.
Yeah, going the other way in that trade obviously was a second round and a third round pick. I think a pretty modest, trade here for both sides. And, you see some of the acquisition costs that we've seen during the offseason. I think this is very good for Columbus. Change things up a little bit, not trying to reinvent the wheel. Every team obviously looking for that impact player, but it's been extremely difficult this offseason with teams having cap space. And pretty much, we said this before, every team's trying to improve except for Pittsburgh. Right. They're truly the only team I think that is sort of trying to go through a quote unquote rebuild. So it's pretty tough to deal in those circumstances. The other thing is, and this is something I talked with Mike Straw last week, is, I think you're going to see some in-season trades. If teams are falling off, their path of where they're supposed to be going, you could see some teams making some adjustments as they're trying to get the season back on track. So I think Columbus will be one of those teams because they do have cap space, and I think there could be some possible moves there. We talked about this in our DMs. I want to bring this up because I don't agree with it, and you and I obviously don't agree with this either. So The Athletic had their 10 worst contracts article that came out, and we'll talk about the best ones too, because I want to get your thoughts on this, because I don't agree with them either. Dom Lucian, I know he's very, obviously, what Dom's all about. He's got his whole model with The Athletic, but Ivan Provorov coming in as the second worst contract. They have his market value at 3.8. The thing that I don't like about this, and I want to get your thoughts on it, is it's not factoring in the landscape of the NHL right now. We know that defensemen go for a higher price these days. They're not readily available. It's hard to make trades. It's hard to make signings. There just wasn't a lot of names that were out there as well. So, to even say that he's worth 3.8, like I agree that he's not worth maybe 8.5, but 3.8, considering the climate we're in right now, how nuts is that? Like, again, I know it's basing it off the model here, but I think this is being pretty unfair to the Jackets and Ivan Provorov.
Yeah, that assessment of 3.8 is absolutely insane. Erica Branson's making more money than that as our third pair right shot D. And you know what? It's no secret that the Columbus Blue Jackets were in and around right-hand shot defensemen that they couldn't reel in. One, Don Waddell was hopeful that Aaron Ekblad would become made available with all the cap stuff in Florida. That didn't happen. He took a pay cut to stay. Moving on to the Noah Dobson thing. I'm happy we didn't acquire him because stylistically it would have been just too much offense and I don't like it. But we were in and around that name as well. And since the options were so limited once those two marquee names came off the board, we were basically forced to pay Provorov an extra $1 million than what he was worth, so we didn't lose him. I think the fair number was somewhere around $7 or $7.5 million, but you had this guy waiting around anxious as anything, not knowing if his future was certain here. And this is a player that wanted to stay. On top of that, which I've told you privately, and I will say publicly, this man is versatile, and that is very overlooked in the value of his contract. He played on his offside almost the entirety of last season, paired up with Denton Mateychuk, our up-and-coming stud. He reminds me of someone similar of Devon Taves. He just makes everything look so easy and so simple, and he's just very consistent. And you know what? Provorov doesn't get hurt either. 2 seasons in a row, he hasn't missed a game. We've had massive issues staying healthy. And honestly, in my opinion, the main reason why we didn't make the playoffs last year is when Sean Monahan broke his wrist and he missed about like a quarter to a third of the season. And as our first line center carrying a huge workload, that's when we lost the majority of our games and went on a massive skid. So yeah, did we overpay a little bit? Yes, but it's not egregious. And the cap's going up massively over the next few years. So we have to retrain how we're viewing these contracts over time for sure.
Yeah, and what you don't want to be is in a situation like Anaheim or some of these other teams, although Anaheim did make a few acquisitions this offseason, is where you have this cap space, but you have nowhere to spend it because these teams are realizing that sometimes it's better to hold on to what you have as opposed to trying to find something better. I don't know what type of you just mentioned it there, like Ekblad and some of these other names, Noah Dobson. Would those have been upgrades over Provorov when, you bring up a great point. You look at the consistency every year, 82 games the last 3 seasons, 79 the season before. This is a guy that is very consistent. And, you look at that trade with the Flyers, I think the Jackets were the one that ended up winning that in terms of what they ended up getting back. You always need that stability on the back of the blue line. I like the move. Yeah, they overpaid, but a lot of teams overpaid this offseason if you look at it here. So don't really have an issue with, it's crazy to me that the 3.8 is his projected. Like that's because he's a defenseman. Like if we're talking about maybe like a third line, like forward or something that you're getting paid 8.5, I can understand maybe the value being lower, but like defensemen are a premium, like especially ones that play as many minutes or have as many games as Provorov. So you and I are on the same page with this one. Since we're on the topic, these are some of the contracts that they've also mentioned. I understand the Huberdeau one. I don't know if he's worth 5.1, but his production has certainly gone down a little bit. Some of the other ones they had on here, Chandler Stevenson, not going to disagree on that. I don't know, 1.5, that seems a little low.
Right from the rip, we said that wasn't a good contract.
No, we knew that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we talked about that last year actually when they made Seattle. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they can do now with Jason Botterill as the GM as opposed to Ron. I don't think Ron Francis did a very good job, if we're being honest. I think he was too passive in the expansion, and then I think he was too aggressive with the wrong pieces last summer, and I don't think a lot of that's really worked out. And I don't know about 1.5, but 6.3 for Chandler. Like Chandler Stevens is getting 6.3, and Provorov's getting, well, granted different positions, but you understand where I'm going with, again, like there's some teams that have really kind of gone ahead here. Brady Shea's on this list, Nick Hague, Sean Couturier, Pullock, Sam Bennett they have, but again, you're not factoring in, yes, Bennett was overpaid, but you're also getting the Bennett that performed very well in the playoffs, right? And that's not really
also $8 million for a second line center in 2 seasons isn't even going to be that. Like people are going to be saying that's looking good in 2 seasons.
Yeah, and every team needs a second line center. Winnipeg never got one, right? I don't think Jonathan Taves is going to be the guy that they're hoping to fill that role. Like every team's sort of missing that. So again, it's addition by addition by just keeping the same players here. I'm not going to disagree with the Cody Ceci one. That was a bad move. Ken Holland continuing to waste cap space, and Tanner Jeannot. I'm not a fan of that contract either. I don't know about 0.8, but I don't think he's worth 3.4 a season. I'm sure you saw that contract, 4 years and 3.4 per season. That's a little too much for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little too much for me as well. And with the trade weight that he carried when he left Nashville originally, I feel like these teams feel like they're obligated to pay him, and that's why he's getting it, not so much based off his performance. But we know he's a really good enforcer in that aspect. He's just not putting pucks in the back of the net like Matthew Olivier.
Yeah, and I don't know what Boston's sort of doing right now. I think they're trying to do this rebuild on the fly, I would assume, because they are making signings. They did trade, obviously, some of the names. Although, did you hear the other day, I heard this yesterday on Twitter, that apparently Casey Middlestat's now in play. They just acquired him at the deadline, and sort of their thinking was that wasn't really the guy they wanted, and now he may be available. So, I mean, we'll see if he ends up getting dealt, but I don't think the Bruins are going to do a whole lot this year. That's a team, I think, as well, that will not make the playoffs this year. I think they're still on the outside looking in. What do you think of that?
Yeah, they're a mess right now. And I think if they don't sort it out quickly, they have to be thinking in the back of their mind, David Pastrnak can just complain his way out of town.
Yeah, like Marchand.
Because at his age, he's not going to play forever. And he's probably thinking there's not a realistic window for him to win a cup if he stays on the Boston Bruins, even if he stays until he's 33 or 35.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Okay, we'll quickly get to the best contracts, and we can kind of go over some other stuff with Columbus as well. So they had the best contracts. Now, this one, I understand it. Actually, hold on. Here are the best contracts. Okay, this is what came in at number one. And there's a big asterisk next to this, in my opinion. And I think you know where I'm going with this. So Jack Hughes is their number one best contract, $8 million a season, worth 15.6. I think this projection is way too high. Now, I get Jack Hughes was the top pick, but my big thing, and I've said this before, and it's not because obviously his brother plays for Vancouver. I'm not saying it from that lens at all, but he hasn't been healthy. So I don't know how you can project a contract like this when you're not even getting the full value out of him. Did this surprise you as the best contract? Again, I think 8 is kind of low, but I don't think he's worth 15.6. We're talking, that's like McDavid money.
Yeah, I think a lot that they're taking into consideration is the term here.
Yeah, I guess.
But don't get me wrong; he exceeds his value of $8 million for sure. But 15.6 is absolutely insane. I think if the number was closer to like 12, because he doesn't really take faceoffs. I wouldn't even argue that he's a center. Like he'll take faceoffs once in a while, and when he does, his faceoff percentage isn't even good.
Mm-hmm.
So he's more or less just a high-end winger, which is like Mikko Rantanen and David Pastrnak money. Those guys are getting paid like 12 and change. So yeah. I think that's a fair assessment of him.
And then we've got, obviously, we were just talking about Provorov playing 82 games a season. Jack Hughes, 62, 62, 78, 49. Yeah, the big thing is him being healthy. Is that I mean, we'll find out this season. Yeah, I think so the shoulder injury, if I'm not mistaken, that he had this year was the different shoulder. So that's obviously not good. I mean, if it was the same shoulder, it'd be, okay, maybe we really got to take some time off. But I don't know. I think the problem with Jack Hughes is New Jersey's success really does depend on him. And, because he's such a big piece for them. I remember when they went in the playoffs last year, we all said, they're not going to do a whole lot because they don't have a difference maker, and that they're difference makers on the sideline. So I think really the Devils' success for the most part does ride on Hughes' success. Do you sort of feel that way? I guess we could kind of look at some of the acquisitions they made, but nothing like needle moving wise for New Jersey as far as our offseason moves.
Yeah, one of my friends is a Devils fan, and I just believe that Timo Meier, when they acquired him, wasn't as advertised when they had brought him over. He was an absolute unit carrying his own line in San Jose. And when he came over to New Jersey, yeah, he's physical. Yeah, he's tough to play against, but he just isn't producing at the same level. Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, those are fantastic players. But aside from that, I really think they have little to no winger depth at all. And honestly, the defense is just inconsistent. And there's so many times you watch them. Because over here, you get MSG Network. It's the Islanders, the Rangers, and the Devils.
That's right. Yeah.
The amount of chances that the Devils give up on odd man rushes is mind-blowing. For as good a skater as they have all over the ice, I mean, they just leak high danger chances. It's unbelievable. And yeah, look, that's the winger depth that I was alluding to. Like, that's atrocious. They don't even have a second line winger to pair with Timo Meier that's skilled enough to help him get some offensive production boost.
Yeah, and then we're hearing Dougie Hamilton maybe on the block because again he's got a pretty hefty contract. They still haven't paid Luke Hughes yet. I'm curious to see what that comes in at. They have the cap. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that because I think they might have to make a trade here. Let me look at the cap space here for New Jersey. This is one. There's a few RFAs. Maybe we can get into that a little bit as well. I know I'm kind of throwing a bunch of different stuff, but I just stuff that's sort of coming to mind here. But they got $6 million in cap space. I think Luke Hughes is going to get paid more than that, right? Like I would think he's probably in the 7 or 8 just for his, where he was drafted and sort of the potential there. So who moves out? I mean, they're going to have to move something out right here. It's not going to get it done with 6.1, right?
And there's been rumors that Simone Nemec is going to get traded, and I'm pretty sure he's close to being due for a contract, if not definitely due for one. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's a name.
Yeah, they got to sign him. Yeah,
he is. I know it's not going to get a lot of money off the books, but considering the year after when you'd actually have to pay him, it would take money off the books. And you want to get rid of a guy like that who has decent perceived trade value because he's never going to take the leap over Luke Hughes in this organization. This is like a Bowen Byram type situation over here with this guy. Yeah. I'm not saying he's as skilled as Bowen Byram, but similarly, there's no path for him to overtake the power play 1 role.
Yeah, I agree. And then also remember Kovalchuk had some issues last year with Sheldon Keefe is the guy that maybe they're considering, although right shot defenseman, like you don't really want to get rid of those. But I do wonder, like, is he in play maybe? Because again, him and Keefe kind of butted heads. You got Hamilton who, got a pretty hefty contract. They, is there any teams like are there, we've heard some teams that are obviously looking for some defensive help, but yeah, curious to see how this all kind of unfolds with New Jersey. Just kind of parlaying that though. Two notable RFAs other than Luke Hughes that should be mentioned that aren't signed yet. What do you think of this Mason McTavish news out of Anaheim that they're trying to figure out, like, is he going to stay? We're hearing now maybe a bridge deal. The fact that there's even rumblings about him possibly being in play, I think is very intriguing. He's 22 years old.
And he does dirty work, and I'm a big fan of his game. He works hard. Man, like, dare I say, if he leaves, this has Sam Bennett 2.0 written all over it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, if he does not get retained by the Ducks and he leaves, he's going to hit it out of the park, go to a completely different team, get a way better usage rate, and just throw up insane numbers because that boy, he's farm strong. Everyone talks about it when they interview his teammates, that they said they've never even been near a guy that's this strong. And he's barely even 6 feet tall. He's a literal machine, this guy. So that's bad news for the Ducks if they're going to lose him. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, obviously the asking price is going to be high. We're talking about a high draft pick and someone, again, center, young center. I mean, that's about as good as gold. You'd have to have just a crazy package to go acquire him. I know in Canucks land, everyone's trying to figure out packages of how that would work. Do you trade Vilander? Do you trade, your 2026 first round pick? There's so many because that's Canucks need it, obviously, but a lot of teams need a second line center as well. So there's certainly some teams with some prospects, some cap space that could certainly accommodate that. So that's one thing to monitor as well. And then just quickly, rounding up the RFAs, and we'll get back to Columbus. Marco Rossi, who the Wild have basically determined is more of a third line center for them as opposed to a second line center. The last I heard was they haven't talked since June. So, and the thing is, his name's been out there for a while. So I think teams know that Minnesota's a bit desperate in this spot because they have to sign him. Is it going to be a bridge deal? Is it going to be a long-term deal? It seems like he wants more than what the Wild think, deem is possible. The knock on him, though, unfortunately, he's a smaller center. So that's not going to be too appealing to teams that are looking to add size to their lineup.
Yeah, this is another player that's caught between a rock and a hard place. And I'm not saying I want this deal to happen. Mm-hmm. There's been rumblings that Yegor Chinakhov is probably going to leave the Columbus Blue Jackets because in the beginning of the season, when Boone Jenner wasn't healthy, he was playing in the top 6. He was playing well. Yet again, just like every season, he hurts his shoulder and misses a significant amount of time. He's the fastest skater on the team. He's got the hardest shot on the team. He's incredibly talented, but he can't stay healthy. I mean, just give a Marco Rossi, Yegor Chinakhov switch straight up. Just because the situation for each of these guys genuinely just isn't working out. And apparently Yegor Chinakhov and Dean Evison didn't see eye to eye because when Yegor Chinakhov came back from injury, he felt like he was entitled to get his top 6 role back. But by the time he came back from injury, Boone Jenner was back and scoring at basically a point per game rate. So it's just not, and he's the captain. So good luck taking that off him. And Yegor Chinikov absolutely is not suited for a third line winger role because he's not that physical. He's a sniper. He would be a good second line winger fit for the New Jersey Devils, I believe. But something else I want to bring up about the Minnesota Wild. Upcoming free agent Kirill Kaprizov. It is not outlandish to think that if this team is on a path to not make the playoffs, that this man will either force a trade out.
You think so, really?
Or hit free agency. He is, before he got hurt, points per game rate-wise, he was on the path. If he played 82 games, he was going to win the Hart Trophy.
I agree.
So this is one of the most talented players in the game who is playing in a city that's very popular where it is. Obviously, they go nuts for hockey in Minnesota, but in terms of mainstream coverage, I'm not seeing Kirill Kaprizov highlights over here in New York, and I doubt you see him too much where you are. We obviously know where he is. You see stuff on social media. I drafted him in fantasy last year. Mm-hmm. But this is a guy, if he hits the open market, if Mikko Rantanen is getting 12 mil and David Pasternak's getting 12 mil, a few years past, the cap's going up, tell me he can't get 15 million on the open market.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Listen, I will give you full marks if that's even a thing we're talking about, partway through the season. But everything I've heard is they'll find a way to do it. One of the things with Minnesota, let me go look at their cap space. They got the Suter and Zach Parise contracts off the book. That was sort of hindering them the last couple seasons. They got $9 million in cap space. I think they'd still have to obviously move some stuff around to get his contract going up. Actually, that's this season. But beyond that, so you're right. He's a UFA. He's a UFA next year. I forgot about that. Why did I think he was younger?
It's because he came to the league and is like
late. You're right. Yeah, exactly. Holy shit.
I'm telling you,
I didn't realize that.
I'm telling you, I have a good feeling he's going to hit the open market. He's a superstar. And
I don't disagree. Yeah.
And these Russian agents, they know how to play it. They really get their guys.
I wonder who his agent is actually. Let me look at that. Sometimes it says on here. Where am I looking? Usually does say it on here. Oh, agent Paul Theophanis. I don't know who that is, but yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Of course, McDavid as well. His contract's going to be up this year. Like there could be some moving pieces here. We'll have to keep tabs on that. I love Joel Eriksson. Like if there was any world where the Canucks could acquire him, I'd be over the moon. I don't even care who they trade. Like I think he is one of the most underrated players in this league.
I agree with you, and also. He's a first-line center for the Minnesota Wild, but look how much he's getting paid. Throw him on any team as the second-line center, and you can basically demand a ransom in return for that.
Yeah.
Because if you're paying him with that security over the next few years as your second-line center, and this guy throws the body around, he blocks shots, he's a net front presence, he does all the dirty work, he should be having a contract nearly the equivalent of Sam Bennett if it was signed right now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, completely agree. Oh, we got some questions, by the way. Shout out to John. Thanks for joining us, John. We'd love to see Mason in Winnipeg, that 2C role, move Lowry to 3C. Who could Winnipeg offer would be my question if they could make a trade. Because, here's the thing, too, that we got to, like, that trade you just mentioned with Yeager for Marco Rossi, I think we're going to see more of those types of trades because all these teams want to get better. They don't want picks unless they're in a cap crunch, right? Usually you want to get players that can help you now. That's been one of the reasons there hasn't been a lot of movement, which, by the way, how often in the offseason have we heard from all the experts that, July, it's going to pick up in July, and then it never did. Oh, early August, I'm telling you, first week of August is going to pick up. It's August 13th. There's been no trades other than the trade that happened at the end of last month, which I was a bit surprised with, which was the Canucks trading Dakota Joshua. Don't know about that one, but just no like big moves here. But getting back to John's question here, who could they give up for to acquire a Mason McTavish? I mean, do they have anyone in the pipeline? John, you'd probably know better than me, but is there anyone is there any prospects or any guys that they could, even like a roster player here that would be intriguing? I don't know. Is there anyone on here that you think like they're not trading Kyle Connor or anyone like that? You know what I mean? But you never know.
Well, they could trade Kyle Connor if they know things are going to go south and he has no intention of re-signing. Obviously, there's no indication of that happening, but this is a guy that's probably going to hit about 10 million.
Yeah. Peretti was kind of the one I was thinking of too, maybe. But it's got to be more than that. Like it would have to be Peretti, a pick, and probably another roster player or something. They would have to figure out. That's a tough one. Yeah, but again, you're right. Winnipeg certainly does need it. The other issue too is, I hate to say it, no offense, John, but we've heard this league wide. Do you want to play in Winnipeg? That's been an issue for them, getting players to go play there. As far as NHL cities go, maybe not the most glamorous compared to like a Florida or somewhere else, but that's one thing to keep in mind. But I certainly think it would be very interesting. And Winnipeg's got to start thinking like this too, because you've got Hellebuck, you've got some of these guys signed. They did lose Ehlers in the offseason, which I don't think is being talked about enough. That's a hole that they're going to have to fill. No offense, but like Tanner Pearson's not really going to do it to fill that. So I think Winnipeg's got to make a bold move here soon, just to make up for the group that they have, because they got a bit of a young team, but I think also you want to. Well, I shouldn't say that. Scheifele's 32, Connor's 28. They got to make some big decisions there. Getting back to Columbus, though, before Columbus dumps Yeager and Evison need to have face-to-face sit down and see if they can resolve their issues. But like Troy said, if you can get a Marco Rossi, would you not take advantage of that? Troy, what do you think?
Yeah, I would. And this is the tough thing for me. But when it gets to this consistency level of injury, I am kind of just forced to write him off. I've been a believer of this guy's talent and skill the entire time he's been on the Columbus Blue Jackets, even when he was drafted and they didn't have a graphics package ready for him because it was such an off-the-board pick. But if you can't even get 60 games out of him consistently every year, it's like you're basically worthless. And he's already on a bridge deal, and he's going to be asked to get paid. So, and like I said, this is a question I have for you, Erwin, if you could reply to this.
Yeah.
If everything ideally was resolved, would you feel comfortable having Yegor Chinakhov as a second-line winger on a line with Adam Fantilli and Kent Johnson, and have Boone Jenner down to the third line? Do you think that would be a better setup for the middle six? Yes or no?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. He also mentions here, we should add this as well. And John, we'll get to your questions too. By the way, love the questions, guys. Especially, I love that we got a Blue Jackets fan here, which is great. That's always why we're kind of doing the teams every week. Rossi will command much more than Chinakhov. Will Columbus want to make that move within Fantilli, Johnson, Sillinger, and Marchenko could be due for hefty raises? I don't know about you, but I think Sillinger is probably going to get moved at some point. Do you get that sense? Because his name's been out there for a bit.
So Don Waddell likes him a lot, even though he's a little bit undersized. I think there's a price where he's going to stay and where he's going to go, because at this point in his career, I feel like he's pretty well suited for a third line center role, because he's a little bit gritty. He'll fight when he has to. He's not dropping the gloves every game, but he's an honest player and he plays both sides of the puck. I wouldn't be shocked if we kept him. But the Marchenko thing. Erwin, Kirill Marchenko is capable of scoring 50 goals in the NHL. The Columbus Blue Jackets power play was so dysfunctional last season, and he popped 30 plus mostly from even strength. I mean, he's a player that I wouldn't be shocked if he's getting 10 mil a season, and the same thing with Fantilli. Luckily, Don Waddell has a really good relationship with his agent, which I've seen in many interviews. So hopefully, whether they decide to go the bridge deal so he can put up better numbers, which I think is more likely than a long-term deal, because we have to remember in Fantilli's first season, his calf was sliced in half and he missed almost 2/3 of the season. So although he completed his second season in the NHL last year, he's loosely at a year and a half's worth of games. And to go into a contract negotiation as a restricted free agent where you don't have too much leverage in the first place, I think the best path for him is probably to go for a short bridge deal, which Don Waddell's been giving to basically everyone. He gave one to Chinakhov. He gave one to Marchenko, all these guys. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's something to definitely to keep in mind there. A couple more questions here from John. Maybe you should back up the truck for Creel, generational talent, but it depends if he can stay healthy. Yeah, I mean, but they're going to have to move caps. Here's the other thing too, though, is like, and this is, I mentioned the Dakota Joshua trade for the Canucks. I think part of the reason they kind of had to make that move, well, one, they're still paying Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which is obviously hindering their cap space, but you don't want to be in a situation where teams know you're cash strapped and you have to make you have to make a trade to dump cap space. And so this is where I think in the Minnesota Minnesota situation, like you might want to get ahead of that. So they should look at clearing some cap space. They've got $6 million, but I mentioned it there. You're going to need a hefty raise here for Krill and make it work. So that's something to maybe monitor. Are there going to be trades? And this Rossi thing, you don't want this leading into training camp and it being an issue, whether he's sitting out or they have to, do a bridge deal or whatever. Like, you got to get this resolved. I can't remember the last time, maybe you remember, has there been an RFA recently where it's like bled into the season and it's become a distraction? I can't think of one recently. I know there's been a ton of examples over the NHL history.
I don't know if it bled into the season too much, or it was very close. I remember when Jason Robertson signed, it was close. And so was
yeah, that's right.
And so was William Nylander.
Yeah. Oh, Nylander. Yeah, that's probably a better example. Actually, now that I think about it, the bridge deals that, well, not bridge, but when the Hughes and Pettersson, this was seasons ago, they were signing their second contracts. There was a bit of a delay there, and it actually, like, they both kind of started the season a little bit later because they weren't part of camp. So yeah, that's another thing. Like, if you're an RFA and you don't have a contract and you're not part of camp because you're not really supposed to be, that can impact team chemistry. That can impact a lot of different things. So I think for everyone, if you're Bill Guerin, you got to make this a priority and get this resolved. I think it's 43. Yesterday I looked at it, 43 days until training camp, I think. So we're getting closer, Troy. It's good. We're almost past the hump here. True about Winnipeg as a destination, locking up Hellebuck, Scheifele, Velarde soon. Connor should help. The only way Jets can compete in Central is shaping down the middle. They have to make a big move. And, we didn't talk about this, but we might as well do it since we're sticking on here. Jonathan Toews, like, what are we expecting here? I don't again, he's been off for 4 seasons around there. It's been a while.
Yeah. I wouldn't set the expectations too high because obviously there could be potential injury issues. And by all accounts, people are saying he's in fantastic shape, but there's a difference between being in fantastic shape and being NHL ready and putting your body on the line. And even if he's suited for a third or fourth line role, that's more taxing on your body than playing higher line minutes because you're not getting cross-checked in the ribs every 3 seconds and grinding. But I hate to be that guy, John B., but I don't think it's a guarantee that Kyle Connor comes back. I'm sorry, but like the Winnipeg Jets, if you could name me 3 players in their prospect pool that are so scintillating that they could either bring back a star player or promise the future that there's going to be growth, to have a guy like Kyle Connor at his age to stay around who is going to want to win. He's 28 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate to be that guy, but it's like, he's also American too. So you have to take that into consideration. Like, he's from Michigan. He could end up in Detroit. His 2 best friends are Dylan Larkin and Zach Werenski. He could end up in Columbus. There's teams with a lot of cap space that will throw money at a guy that's a perennial 40-goal scorer.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. We did have a few Americans, like, Brock Besser ended up staying with the Canucks. That was one where I think for some players, you're right, though, like Tkachuk, and we've seen other Goudreau, those are players that were very vocal about, I want to play in an American market. I want to, go play closer to home. So I think it just depends on the player and their situation and what they enjoy. But there's some that do like playing in specific markets if it's a good fit for them. But definitely something to monitor as Connor is in the last year of his contract. I'm okay with that. Getting back to Columbus. Yeager's injuries have been legit. If healthy, I like what he brings to the table as Jenner ages. Columbus Jackets must be careful not to be too emotionally attached to him. And I don't think Don Waddell will be. He's a GM that's been he's been in the league forever. I remember him back with Atlanta back in the day. I think with him, it's a lot of business, and he's a little bit old school that way, where it's like, you know what, we got to do what's best for business. So I think, they'll make the moves when they need to.
And I agree. And I think his point where he says CBJ must be careful to not be emotionally attached, that's where I trust Don Waddell, because with the trade that we had with Colorado to acquire Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood, we got rid of Gavin Brindley, who at the time of the draft was perceived to be most likely going in the first round. We stole him in the early second round. Many people that are respected in the prospect space, like Byron Bader, rave about this guy as a slightly undersized, talented middle 6 winger. And Don Waddell had no emotional attachment to him because he did not draft him and got the return that he wanted to get more size and speed in the bottom 6.
Yep. Well said. Speaking of the Jackets, may have been mentioned. No, we didn't mention this, that Provorov's brother signed in Ohio State. I didn't know that.
Yep. I think that was another main reason why he wanted to stay. Yes, there's a lot of Russians on the team. The Columbus Blue Jackets have the most Russians on one team in the entire NHL right now. And one game last season, all of them scored. So, or 2 seasons ago. So it's a special group over there. And like I said, Ohio State University is in Columbus, Ohio. His brother is going to be playing there. So just having the family around and potentially being around pros more at the college level will benefit both of them.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's learn something every day. I doubt McDavid or Kaprizov hit the open market. Now sign and trade on the other hand. Well, yeah, that I mean, we saw that with Mitch Marner, right? The sign and trade. But I think McDavid, if I had to predict right now, get your take on this, I think McDavid's going to stay in Edmonton. Again, we talk about the way the organization has been run the last couple of years with Jeff Jackson becoming the president, who's McDavid's former agent. They get Chris Knobloch, who's McDavid's junior coach. Like, they've done what they can to make him happy. I know McDavid did have that kind of line at the end of the season being like, but with I think goaltending and other things they've got to kind of figure out. But I could see him signing a shorter term deal. And then as the cap goes up, he can really cash in later on. And then Kaprizov, I loved your theory, though. I think it would really, add some chaos to the league if Kaprizov does, become available or they decide to trade him. I think Kaprizov ultimately will stay too. What do you think of these two big free agents?
I think this, especially with where he's referring to, hit the open market versus a sign and trade. If it's very clear the Minnesota Wild are nowhere near the playoffs, he would potentially be involved in a sign and trade. If the Minnesota Wild are firmly asserted in the playoff race and exit in the first round, he's an unrestricted free agent. There's no, unless he signs that contract in the middle of the season, there's no guarantee that he comes back. And the Utah Mammoth, formerly the Utah Hockey Club, they've got some really talented players, and I think they could potentially sneak into one of those Western playoff spots. So,
I agree. Yeah.
And the return that you could get for Kaprizov would be off the charts. We're talking about multiple first-round picks, star player, prospect, everything. I mean, this guy, if Matthew Tkachuk got back Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau, we're talking, like I said, we're talking about players of that caliber plus draft picks for Kaprizov.
Yeah. I think they'll try and get something done before the season, I would think. If you're Minnesota, if you're not, then you're really, like I said, they've got these two big headaches now with Kaprizov and now Marco Rossi as well. Like, if you're going into the season with that has to be a distraction. Like, there's no.
I'll tell you why it's not going to get done before the season starts or even early.
Okay.
Because he was injured and he missed a lot of last year. So in his best interest, why on earth would he be negotiating when his numbers are not representative of how good he actually is? I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up a full 82, and maybe he stays, maybe he goes. He plays all 82. We see 135 points from this guy, and he leads the league in points. And then he gets a $15 million a year contract for 7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be something to certainly keep an eye on. Provorov likes Columbus. Already talked about that. If Coyle and Wood don't pan out, this season could be rough. I don't think it really I mean, I do think it is important that those acquisitions that they had, but it's not like Columbus lost. Like, I don't think Columbus is going to be worth. And look at that cap space. My God, 16 million. Like, I think this was a team that was very close to making the playoffs last year. I mean, we talked about this like throughout the season that I thought they were going to make the playoffs. And I think that I think another season with this group, even with these two, I think you could have them both play bad and they could still make the playoffs. I think this is a team that's capable of it. I guess there's going to be a regression. Like, one of the teams I think, unfortunately, that I could see some regression with is Washington. I think if you kind of look at the deeper numbers as far as their PDO and other things, I think that's a team that could fall off a little bit. I don't know about, the Leafs. I mean, the Leafs will make the playoffs, but them losing Marner, that's a big hole to fill. Like, there's certain things like that we got to look at when it comes to projections for next season, where some teams have got to fall off and some teams have got to improve. I even think Montreal can regress this year, to be honest. Like, I don't think there's a guarantee. Like, another thing, like, if you look at the closer numbers, they were kind of shooting above what they were supposed to be doing last season. So I think Columbus will make it regardless of what happens here.
And I think Columbus won't even be in a wild card spot. I think the Metropolitan Division is genuinely horrible. We're talking about a division with the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Philadelphia Flyers, the New York Islanders, the New Jersey Devils, who I just made fun of for their horrible wing depth and injury-prone players that can easily miss the playoffs. And like you just said before, would you be shocked if the Washington Capitals had a huge drop-off? Absolutely not.
No.
And it's not – most people can say, the Metropolitan Division's so bad, Carolina comes in first every year. Yeah, that's true, but would that stop Columbus from coming in second or third place in the Metropolitan this year? And Erwin, I have one more thing for you.
Yeah.
Columbus was the best cumulative goal scoring team at 5-on-5 in the NHL last year. And you know very well as a Columbus Blue Jackets fan, the progression of this team hinges on players like Kirill Marchenko, Kent Johnson, and Adam Fantilli, Denton Matejchuk to take a jump. The parts of the season that we struggled with last year were when we were trying to manage games when we were absorbing pressure and in penalty kill situations. And players like Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood are going to help with that because Miles Wood's one of the fastest players in the league. Charlie Coyle brings the much needed right-handed center depth and grit and toughness to play against to bring that balance. Because as good as Justin Danforth was, he's a small guy. He's 5'9" on a good day. I'm not even sure if he's 5'9" in ice skates. But we need these bigger guys to be tougher to play against in the playoffs because we see time and time again, size and skill wins. And we're still trying to make the playoffs, let alone even win in the playoffs.
Yeah. And not to mention, there could be other moves to be made this season. You have to look at teams that have cap space that, again, the expectation for Columbus, I think in a good season is they make the playoffs. But if they don't, it's still a fairly young team. The expectations aren't as high. You got to look at other teams that they have to make the playoffs. If they don't, there could be significant changes. That's something I think to monitor early in the season. Remember last year was Nashville and it basically panned out the rest of the season that way. They were terrible last year. And then it's funny, there's a team that should be rebuilding and they're not. So I think you could see kind of what I'm getting at is that even if these players don't work out, there's still cap space where you can make adjustments to maybe fill holes or if there's injuries or other things. And I think Columbus is certainly one of those teams that could be making some moves mid-season. I can name 3
those
Jets.
Guys don't work out. It's not horrible because they're role players.
Yeah, exactly. They're not it's not like like Ehlers and Carolina, like they need him to be good, a first line guy, because they
or like the Devils with Timo Meier, they're paying him $8.8 million a year as a premium winger, and he can't even put up 60+ points consistently anymore.
Yeah. I can name 3 Jets prospects, but nothing earth-shattering. Elias Somelson and Brandon. Oh yeah, Brandon Yeager. I've heard of
Brandon
him
Yeager. They acquired from Pittsburgh, and that's a fantastic acquisition because Kyle Dubas obviously has no idea what he's doing. But that was from the Rucker McGroarty trade, so I think you guys were kind of put in a tough place, and that was the best return that you both could get.
Who's everyone's dark horse potential drop-offs this year? Oh, so we kind of worded that interesting. We could just say potential drop-offs this year. When you say dark horse, I think that's a team that usually would do well. But Utah, Winnipeg for the West, Montreal, and Washington for the East. Yeah, I can see Winnipeg. No, the big one for me is LA. I mean, and I said this last year, but this year I think they're even worse with CC and Dumoulin, and they lose Gavrikov, who goes to New York. Like, why didn't you just pay him what he wanted and not sign Cody CC and Dumoulin? Like, you got 2 older, bigger defensemen who've been very inconsistent. Like, I think LA is an easy candidate to be out of the playoffs this year. So I go LA, and I don't think Utah will drop off. I think it's the opposite. I think Utah could make the playoffs. I could see Winnipeg dropping a bit, but I still I think with Hellebuck, you're still a playoff team, right? So LA and maybe, I don't know. I'll have to think about that more. What about you for the West?
Okay, for the West. Oops, phone just fell.
Yeah, no problem. That was a dramatic thing. Yeah.
For the West, like I said, Vegas, their winger depth, that's something that I criticized a lot last year, and that was reflective in their lack of success in the playoffs. I think that's a team that we could see a serious drop-off with. And then I think it's fair to say Winnipeg, honestly.
Yeah, that's right. You think Vegas is going to drop off this year, even with Marner?
Not enormously. Like, they're still going to make the playoffs, but be the best team in their division, I don't think that's likely.
Yeah, I think so. I'm with you, but for a different reason. I think Marner's going to play great in Vegas because I think it's like the perfect situation for him. No media pressure. He can just go do his thing. Eichel doesn't have as much pressure now either because they got this new guy. Like, I think it's going to click well. There's 2 areas I'm concerned with Vegas. Their defense is not looking so hot. I'll bring up the lineup here quickly. By the way, we're going to wrap things up here pretty soon. Yeah, where are we here? Why is Vegas Golden Knights? That's why. Put it as okay. Look at this defense without Pietrangelo. Outside of that first pairing, like, you've got Shea Theodore and McNabb. I guess you got Hannafin as well, but like Whitecloud, Lozon, and of course Korshak. Like, I don't know, man. That's not looking so hot. And then you've still got issues in goal with Aiden Hill and Schmid.
And Shea Theodore is injury prone. Let's not kid ourselves here.
No, exactly. And
he's injury prone.
Yeah,
every season he's hurt.
That's where I'm concerned with Vegas. But I do think like I don't know. I think Vegas will be better
And if
offensively.
Shea Theodore goes down, are you going to really rely on Noah Hannafin to carry power play 1?
No, I think they'll get a defense. I think they're going to probably try and figure out a way to get Rasmus Anderson from Calgary somehow. I don't know. He seems like such a perfect candidate for that team. And they've dealt with Calgary before in the Hannafin trade. I could see that being an option. Just the question is who's going to go. I could see some crazy stuff where like maybe Mark Stone, they figure out a way to get rid of his contract. And because that's one thing with Vegas that I will give them credit for quickly. And I'll get your thoughts on that in a sec. They are ruthless. Like Marc-Andre Fleury, see ya. We need the cap space. They're willing to make bold moves like that.
I think it's possible that they make a play for Dougie Hamilton because New Jersey.
That's another one. Yeah, sort of an older, stabilizing guy that eats up a lot of minutes. That's a good point, actually.
And then right-handed shot power play 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's intriguing for them.
Yeah, I think they'll make a move as far as that goes. And then, you mentioned, so LA, we're on the same page with LA. Again, we'll do a full kind of preview closer to the season time. Let's get the last of these questions and we'll get out of here. I think next season, Columbus can make the playoffs. They have a young, pretty good goalie that almost got them in the playoffs. I think goaltending something to keep an eye on with Columbus. Remember, I was at that game last year when the Canucks played. Like, Columbus played well. They were off to a hot start in that game, and it was Merzlikins who kind of just shit the bed for them. So I think
Elvis Merzlikins is done. We know he's not the man. He's not the solution to the future of this team, to put it nicely and respectfully. Jet Greaves, down the stretch of last season when we needed to win games and we couldn't lose and we missed the playoffs by 1 game, he put up multiple shutouts. And by multiple accounts, he has the best glove in the entire NHL. Anyone in this chat or anyone watching right now, if you're playing fantasy hockey, this is the guy you take in the last pick of your draft, and he ends up a top 8 goalie, and you do massive damage in your league, and thank me later.
Yeah, good pick. That's something I'm going to be keeping tabs on for our pool, especially is who's going to start this year, because there has been some goalie movement as well. Like John Gibson, someone I'm interested in Detroit. Is that going to work out? I don't know. We'll have to see. Columbus snuck up on a lot of teams last year. They saw a lot of backup goalies. They won't this year. Not trying to be negative, but trying to be realistic. Did they see a lot of backup goalies last year?
For sure. They did.
Yeah.
I can totally admit that. But I also will say this. I'm expecting a big leap from Fantilli, Marchenko, and Ken Johnson. Marchenko and Fantilli each put up 30-plus last year. And Fantilli only played power play 1 when Sean Monahan was injured for about 20 games. So him putting up 40 and moving up to the top power play unit in a new configuration isn't out of the realm of possibility.
By the way, I think Johnson's still out here for the summer because, I don't know if you've seen all the videos. It's been everywhere, but like Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard have been training together this offseason. And there was a video with Alex Burrows. And so like all the Canucks fans were like, hey, it's like future Canucks Celebrini and Bedard talking to their future coach. Because like there has been talk about like in the future, maybe them like going for Alex Burrows, who's like a hero here. And the Celebrini Bedard thing in a couple of years is going to be interesting. I mean, obviously neither of those teams want to lose those guys, but you never know, man. Like that's where like this Quinn Hughes thing, like, I'm worried about it. Like, obviously they got to keep him happy and we got to see, I think the Canucks, sorry to go off on like a Canucks tangent here towards the end of the show, but like, I think that them keeping Besser and Garland and Demko and all these guys, I think that helps Hughes because they're all buddies. They're all Americans. They golf together, all that stuff. I think that will help Hughes maybe wanting to stay. But I think if Hughes leaves, there's still that possibility of Bedard and Celebrini coming to Vancouver. Like they're from here. They're proud to be here. Like I said, but Celebrini was at the Canucks playoffs game before he got drafted last year. Like there's, there could be some interesting things happening in the few years. So we'll see. Okay, let's zoom through the rest of these and we'll get out of here. Columbus goalie is good. I agree. Yes, absolutely. Rest in peace, Johnny Gaudreau. I think the Oilers are going to fall off this year. Also the Canes. I don't think the Canes will fall. Canes still though, man. And it's so funny. I'll mention this quickly because you and I share the same sentiment. I'm listening on the radio this morning and they're talking about, the Athletic's going to have their article about like best front offices. And I'm like, they're going to say Carolina. I guarantee it. Like, oh, they're geniuses. Sure enough. First one they mention is Carolina. And I'm like, I get that they have some like very intriguing, like long-term, like, contracts and they've made some interesting moves with like Miller, but like, they're still the same team that's lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like until they win a cup or even make the finals, like how are they any different than Toronto? You know what I mean? Like, I think this is a team that gets way too much praise and very little pushback. And I talked last year at length about the Mikko Rantanen trade. Like, how do you butcher that and them not get any, criticism? And even Keandre Miller, there's a chance that he doesn't work out there. Like, he might. Like, I think it's a good, risk sort of not risk, but like I think it's a good project for them to build on. But you ask most Rangers fans, they couldn't wait to get rid of him. He was not good in New York towards the end of last year. So yeah, I don't know if the Canes will fall off, but I think they're definitely a team that doesn't get nearly enough criticism from the media, as I think
and
you and I agree on.
respectfully about the Carolina Hurricanes, and I'll say this because my favorite teams in this division, the
Yeah.
Metropolitan Division's the worst in the NHL. So
Oh, yeah.
they will continue to finish in first place in the Metropolitan year over year and fail in the playoffs. It is no accomplishment for them to finish in the first place of the Metropolitan Division.
Vegas is going to have an upset. Well, I wouldn't think Vegas is sort of favored this year. People are like, I don't know how it is in the US, but in Canada, everyone's like talking about Vegas being like a cup contender again because of Marner. Because Marner is like a huge thing. You watch this year, his first game, it's going to get so much coverage. Like this was probably the biggest story of the summer was Mitch Marner going to Vegas. And like here, it's like the equivalent of, I don't know, being like LeBron James going to a different team or something. That's basically what it is here. Jackets 4-11 in one stretch killed them last March. Fans blame Elvis, but in 6 of those losses, they were shut out. Wouldn't matter how many goals Elvis gave up. Elvis wasn't that bad. He gets a bad rap. What do you say to that?
And a lot of those games were without Sean Monahan when he had that bad wrist injury. So
yeah, Monahan's
you know how important he is on the team. He's one of the guys that can slow the play down and consistently win faceoffs, and he brings a lot of balance to the lineup.
Here's a couple interesting takes. Columbus didn't have good defense. I don't know about that. They have better defense than I think a lot of teams, but I don't know. I wouldn't really blame the defense. You just mentioned it there. Not enough scoring. I think this year's Predators will be better. Maybe they just didn't have that good chemistry. I think that's a big risk, honestly, assuming that last year was just like a one-off. Like, as far as I know, Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, I don't think they had any major injuries or anything. I just don't think this is a good makeup of the team. This is what I think's happened in Nashville. I think it's a classic case of a team falling in love with someone that is beloved in the organization and Barry Trotz, and I just don't think he's a good GM. And I think we're seeing that already. Like, I think they made the wrong signings, the wrong moves, and I think he's going to get more of a leash, because if this was any other team with what happened last year, there's probably major changes going on, including the coach and other things. But they're just standing put and hoping that things will go better. I don't know, man. Like, they did not look good last year. So I think Predators are going to be right back where they were last year. I don't think they're going to be.
Yeah,
good.
Those are the type of signings you make when you're close to winning a cup and sprinkle in a veteran or two to bring some consistency to your lineup. Those aren't the signings that you make when you're years away from even getting into playoff contention.
Okay, last one here from John. Sorry, I know there's 2 other questions, but we'll get to these. Marchenko is so good. Werenski's top 5 easy. Can't wait to watch the Jackets this season. Me either, and I'll make a bold claim. We'll talk about this more on the preview show closer to the season. I think Werenski possibly could win the Norris this year. Because here's the scenario where I see this potentially happening. I think Columbus, like you said, is not just going to be a playoff team. They'll be like kind of like not just like sneaking into the playoffs. I think they can actually get in. And I think Werenski is really going to be a big part of that. And they're going to be like, well, if they don't have Werenski, how are they going to look? Because here's the thing with Cale Makar. And I love Cale Makar. He's Canadian. He certainly helped Canada in the 4 Nations. You do have to look at the fact that he has more help than a lot of these other guys do. Like, he's got Devon Taves. He's got, Nathan McKinnon as forward. Like, you look at Werenski, he doesn't have as many weapons. Same thing with Quinn Hughes too. Like, Quinn Hughes has got to get more respect as well. You're not looking at the supporting cast, and sometimes you can't help who's on your team, but that should be factored in here. Werenski was clearly one of the MVPs for Columbus last year. So.
Yeah, he's a one-man breakout machine. He makes everything look so easy. And like I said, when he came right into the league, he was putting up 45, 50 points. So this guy showed promise right off the rip. And yeah, he had some health problems here and there. But heading into this season, he played in the IHF World Championships and took his fitness super seriously. Barely missed any games, and he had the best season of his career.
Troy, you're the best. This was awesome. We'll definitely link up in a few weeks because, yeah, like I said, training camp starting in 43 days, maybe 42 days now, if my math's correct here. So definitely keep some tabs on that. Anything you got to plug? I know you're a soccer guy. You mentioned the Premier League starting up against here soon. Oh, I got to ask you this quickly as like a quick soccer thing before I forget. So I don't follow soccer very much. I don't know if you follow MLS at all. Thomas Mueller going to the Whitecaps. Apparently that's like a huge deal with him signing there. Do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know if you follow MLS at all.
Yeah, so Thomas Mueller.
Sorry, yeah.
One of the greatest players to ever play for Bayern Munich and one of the greatest players to play for Germany. And on top of that, he's an electric personality. He is a content creation machine. This guy plays pranks on his teammates. He's everything that you want. And like I said, respected all around the world. And bringing a player like that over to the MLS, which is significantly lower level competition than the German Bundesliga, which is arguably the 3rd best league in the world. He's going to absolutely kill it over there. So enjoy him. He's an awesome player. And like I said, you're going to see a lot of Thomas Muller jerseys walking around that city soon.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Sorry, we got one more here. So you think Matthews is going to score 60 goals and maybe win the Art Rod? It depends on his health. That was the big thing last year. He was not healthy, and it didn't help that he played the Four Nations. If Matthews is healthy, we'll see. I don't know. There could also be the argument like maybe he will never get back to what he is. I don't know. I think there's a big question mark on Matthews. I'm not going to say no, but didn't look good last year. And you got to hope he's healthy this year, right?
I'm not willing to bet on that while he does not have Mitch Marner.
Great point. What do you got coming up, Troy? Let us know.
Yeah, the actual Premier League starts on Friday, so I have a bunch of fantasy Premier League draft content out now on my page, Sleeper Man City. You can definitely find that on TikTok, and thank you so much for having me on the show again. Looking forward to coming back and chopping up some fantasy hockey and predictions.
There we go.